아래다 잠말이야. 근데 지금 로사비게 난 제시텔에다. 근데 이런 거 자산이야 지금. 자산 대부제제 양양은 저기 근데 지금 상유 좀 낸디기 근데 달바다 탐지 캠비고 거기에 남된 제샤바 안델이야 안데 자주 타버친 비게 남냠는 이름 봐. 자주 셈비게 냠는 봐. 야시와를 침be 상주비 주주의 냠는 제대 안줄야 야야 안지게 친연지야 고가브라와데 에 마세 소수이나 가오종을 찾아 하는 선음 침보래 가오 시라종 송사지.
Good evening. So it's our new year. It's our first time together, and it was only New Year recently. So Happy New Year to everyone. But also ready to say that it brings great joy in my mind to be back together, in particular, back together looking at the trainings in order to engage in, to generate bodhicitta, to cultivate the paths of the bodhisattva within. That we have this incredibly fortunate opportunity to look at this remarkable text by Shantideva and to also reflect and integrate these trainings is something really all to recognize how truly fortunate we are to have this opportunity together.
아니네 자라 저기 자와 야가 가르치면 토말이야네 군로 상보지단 탐미게 아니다 니 개화모야지 토산이라 자와니서 토마들 제위다가 군로 상보지야 전주심 군내려하다 난 타마 달래가도 주도 조어도 니 개화모야지 지상 토메 군로야 보제된 말들 토마 군로 토산이라 자와니서 토마다 타마이라 내가니 요래라다 제가 토마데 가르스는 아주 다가지레 취 가르치비네 가냐면 가르치비 당보 군로디로 와다 군로야 보고야지 제대한 심자 탐지 상조고 퇴비치도 안자주 심비 군내라 군나디 계치 못 자고 지사데 군로라데 아주 냠는 제한 즉 최제제 양 소수냐래죠 다로 타마 조로도 양아주 아직 개왕 오와자 중으로 와 개와디 사중 오와자 어디나시 디네 자당한서 디린 바양 로살비기 마주게 나주게 롭시셔야 돼. 한국 주요에서 다 대장 수수기다 군을 마서나 야 심지어 탐지기도 산조고번 투비 치료도 하는 냠런지기 인세바 안디야 지금 무퇴시 안전주 좀 제가 또 냠런지기 인세베다 삼나도 따야 되게 침모작으로 와.
As you would have heard many times before, it's of great importance that at the outset of an activity to cultivate the required motivation, and at the conclusion of the activity to dedicate. So this is the bookends of our virtuous activities that we should cultivate repeatedly, continuously. But certainly on occasions such as today, where it's the first Wednesday night that we're gathering together. So here we have the opportunity, as we've already done with the mandala and so forth, to generate our motivation for our year ahead. And the motivation is always one of bodhicitta. This determination through having come to recognize the sufferings of samsara, this determination to gain freedom from that for the sake of all beings. In other words, to become a Buddha so that one can guide all beings to a state freed of suffering. So this is the motivation that now I encourage you to generate for our year ahead, but also to generate on a daily basis and during the day. And afterwards, of course, one concludes with a dedication. Again, this is done as we will in a short while after our time together, and one does on a daily basis. So the motivation for our time together over this year that I encourage you to generate now is the determination to receive this teaching and the subsequent ones as instruction for yourself to cultivate, as a method by which to cultivate the minds that lead to the generation of bodhicitta, you yourself. And then also to engage in these reflections so as to generate the full outcome that Shantideva presents before us.
안 배율이야 친제 가병 공부하지 아니 얘니 먼저 총주 쳐야 되게 돼 아니 제게 Supreme Chiki Kudungi Dunlea, Manzugian, Jike, Shapten, Molam Jad, Dene, Soyara Sopana, Denechi go up Yavarason, and they want to Tondi Kabla Nindawa de la, and the Tirimche, Mosu Payment, Dina Taya, Zoom to and the Galo, Tirimche Galop Nason, Shohe de la Tirimche Galop Na, Nasani Shohe de la, and Nibiki Shohe de la, and the Kipsilin Machege, and the Jekalop Nayana, Udusine Galop Naya, the Nechidu, and Dijela, and Jike. Roger and the Jim Supreme Chiki and Zabertin, the Guyu Rose, the Deneke Shada, and Jan Chandachi and Chozogi, Jordan Zutan, Rosu, and Yamat Chozo, even to Chozo Juna, Didi, Cordo Sheson, the Nesore Denesh Johnsons.
I've just returned from my annual holiday in India, and as always, my time in India and in Sera, I enjoy very much. But this year, I also went to Kopan Monastery in Nepal, because there was a gathering of Geshis from around the FPMT to come together for a meeting. So in addition to having a discussion about various topics, we, before Lama Zopa, we engage in various pujas and prayers and so forth. Before the embalmed body of Lama Zopa, we engage in pujas and prayers and so forth. And we were also fortunate to receive over the internet advice from Tri Rinpoche, the Ganden Tripa, as well as from Linga Rinpoche. Then Raja also gave a talk where he spoke about Rinpoche, and he spoke about various topics to do with the FPMT centers.
Tortiro Shia, Nesor Chia, Rason Cobrason, Mamboshia go up to Sico Dangbedo, Dangan on the Chazol Mason Delia, Desan Mason, and the Combate, and the Chedere, and then to get Chazore, things are Anita San, Desen Shitus Yores, and to Desen Shiga, and Chambuta, 2 years, and then to get Chazon Mason Chazogita, Lejebet, and so much as and then 2 years, Yahoo years. And then Chosolia and Cheshua meet Yahoo Yungus, all those in the Dorduro Shishia as one Nesurusha.
Each Geshe he was there, and there were quite a number of FPMT Geshis who gathered, had a few minutes where they could briefly present to the others a bit of information about their center. So we didn't have much time, but in my opportunity, I enjoyed being able to talk about really our quite unique situation, where not only do we have a Dharma center here, but there's a nunnery, a monastery, and the great stupa as well. So we have quite a unique situation here, and I spoke about the interaction between the various of these various entities and the harmony between the various entities and cooperation between them. But one other point to make about being in Nepal at the time of year, it was beginning of January, is it was really quite cold.
And the Nigi Dulo, Chitango Yorasan, Dulo Tubura, Kaya Marwa, and then you Tamudua in there that the Megashida, Gishitinzo, the conjugate Dulo Tubura, Yas and Yawochos, Yujos, Penny, Deviria, Bakabingo, Yawoshuresha, and then Kabin could be cinema to the never like yes, Chazan Gora or Chazan Tonga Chimushudo, and then Kabin could be Mazukishitolia, never Tiare, any Diosada, the Neland Bear, which is song.
And I travel very light, and I did not take much in the way of warm clothing for Nepal in the beginning of December, because the beginning of January. But fortunately, Michael Yeshi and Geshe Thubten Zopa, they helped out, so I was okay. And then also, I had the opportunity, as well as my first trip to Nepal, to see Kopan Monastery itself, and also Kopan arranged a pilgrimage for all of us. So all of us Geshis were taken, we spent 2 days going around the various pilgrimage sites around Kathmandu.
Alright, that during a Sanyi. 나니 대등한 주디 디르와 제베종아 안에 대등한 주기 제베종아 될이야 안제름 책이 안에 제 출연몰람 첨보사지 저기 다서 가다 기루비게 나 공부 용수도가 차살이야 안에 두스네 지고를 내가 주 최소래 넘기네 두스네 안에 지 계시 지송지 지고로.
In a few days' time, on Saturday, it's the Day of Miracles. So in our Golok tradition, we continue a tradition that was started by our founder, Lama Tsongkhapa, which is at that time to engage in a great prayer festival. So here at the Atisha Center, we are doing an abbreviated version in that we have a few events planned for Saturday.
되게 베더 당부게 체바 지내에 손제 체바 종안 되느냐 상유 좀되느냐마 상유 좀된데다 안에 지금 하나 주기 셴다 지금 출루샤다기 땜바 즉 땜바 여러와 출루변에 지금 출루샤다다 변한 하나는 자다 힌두로 차거로와 제가 땜바디게 권주기에단 소소랑랑 게 냠렌제비에 냠렌이 뉴바 또버터비게 또 주주돼야 여러와 제가 주주돼야게 두시네 다 제네 아니 마 체버진이 봐 고소체 체버 종원님 모델이야 아니 직상유 좀 된데게다 제가 지게 주주된제 아니 시행을 주주먹 내가 좀 만들 전도로 체버로 와다 직전에 된 개발도 봐봐 시행을 하고게 아니 개발도 봐봐 상유 좀 된데게 주주된제 아니 지게 좀 샤나디게 제수 이랑 상유 좀 된데기다 주주게 좀 될이야 당한줄을 하고 상유 좀 된데기 좀 두세배 되네게다 상유 추주몰라 추주식으로 주주된 대한学生은 추주식으로 추주 지단 상유 추주된 제 차상 시윤의 말이지 시윤의 안에도 겨워 뭐 안에 상유기 제수 장제 루시는 안에 직상이 제바제비 두신들이다 되네게 제바 정한들 지단 제바 정은 니 대다 답든지 제로 뭐지기 니 상유 좀 내게 제바 추주 두신디 제수 전배 토네 아니야 사사를 조다 되마상이 좀 내들이야 안데 지기 변에 지게 세게 링하다 되네게 견자 표시 두신 몰람 안지 길로 용서 써봐 뒤에서 봐차 안지 상jel이야 초후에게 몰람디 개체모디 안체베게니 봐주 고존제네 제가 정화 탐만인데 뒤시고와 온두시네 데 소사 집장제에게 개와 개체모사에게 돈다로 뒤수로 제 뒤진로 된대다.
The Saturday on the Tibetan calendar is the 15th of the first month. And this then marks the end of a 2-week period from the first of the year, from Lhasa, in which Buddha Shakyamuni, he engaged in a competition with non-Buddhist teachers in terms of magical displays or psychic powers. And so this is something in the history of Buddhism that is seen as something of quite some importance. So therefore, Lama Tsongkhapa arranged for, at the culmination of this 15-day period, for the great prayer festival to commence, so as to give people the opportunity to gather in vast numbers. Traditionally, this would have been done in Lhasa, at various places, such as in front of the Great Jaw statue, and engage in extensive acts of accumulation of virtues, such as pujas and prayers, and so forth. And again, Lama Tsongkhapa initiated this so as to encourage people to utilize this opportunity to accumulate limitless skies of merit.
아다들은 안 마셔야되다 그지 디바샤베게 리오 되는마다 님부터 쉬고는 디바샤야되다 님부터 갈셔야되도 수차거래 되는 자다 된 마치들이 데린 코나 미치시 데어도 바리마인 네 다네 매버 규르여디 데네 되메사워 중스.
So let's then return to the text. So where we are thus far is in the second chapter, the chapter on the accumulation and confession. So here we now have been looking for some time at the confession, which is a presentation, a detailed presentation on the 4 opponent powers. So we are at the 58th verse in this chapter, and reading the 58th verse, it is irrational to sit at ease thinking, today at least I shall not die, for the time when I will be no more is undeniably approaching.
Some Croatan Jigu or Jigu or Madasaja. The Magic by Nakar Chevrolet said this one or what on the teacher had Nimbukum Guri.
In this section, where we're looking at the 4 opponent powers, these serve as the antidotes to past negativities that have been accumulated, and they serve to bring to an end the further accumulation of non-virtue. So this is these are important to have a good understanding of, so as to apply them well, and this has as the very foundation a recognition of what is harmful, what is non-virtuous, what is unwholesome.
Dirin as a Shigri Assembly, Shigri Assembly Marwa, Dirin Shigmara, Sanya Shigmara, Lo Jama Shigmara, Lo Mangoji Duegi, Shiega Samahoche, Lo Mangoji Duegi Assembly, Cheshira, and Chick Mangoji in Rugor, some Nalea, or the Dirin Chixion, the Dirin Machina Sanya Shirda, Gedishing Eva Yomarsa, some of the Kogo Marwa, Mago and Zanga, some of Karokosine, Dirin Kona Michi, Devar Dupa, Sidu. Tanga zu diring ta te sing mar diring sing ma ta mo zo lo kha xie ge ma zhen ba xie dan da la an nga zu ge che di ge ko wi ge di gi zam le cha jin ne di dan da la le ge le du go re che je de ne ne ga zu ge ge we cha wa ka so lam nyam len chia ge wa le pe zu ma che ba che de ne ge le ya an chi che di zem ge ko wi di gi zam ya cha jin du xiang du xin ne du go re jo re Dirin Kona Michi and Devar Dupa said it. And Devar Dupa is in it, Sediki, Digizam, Louis Deva, Sem Deval, Dine Chargin, must do Stugo, Dinigi, Didonal Dagalis, Stugo, as you over that.
The first line in the Tibetan is our second line. Today, at least, I shall not die. So here, Shantideva is presenting to us very clearly the mistaken perception under which we live our lives, which is with this subconscious thought that today I definitely will not die. Tomorrow, no, nor tomorrow. And in fact, next year I will not die either. This is how we all live our life. It's not that we consciously have this thought, but we can see by how we make our plans and strive to fulfill our plans for today and tomorrow, and our plans for the future too. We act like people who believe that death is not imminent, that death is something far in the distance. And this is how we live our life. But as it then says in the second Tibetan line, our first line, it is irrational to sit at ease thinking in this way. So it's irrational to think like this, because our death can come at any time. Recognizing this, we see that because our death not only will certainly come, but could come at any time, it is irrational to be sitting here at ease with this thought, I have time. Rather, we should be utilizing whatever it is that remains of this life to accumulate merit. And in order to do so with a total commitment of our mental attitude, we need to put aside the various activities that dominate our time and our mind that really have no great meaning at all.
제사당 삼나라 나주에 냠뇨로 바바다 하르바다 지금하고 디린 시기에서 뭐라 산이 시기에서 로제마 시기에서 비게 삼로스카야 시기에서 비 삼로디기노 고고마고제 나가서 가서네 되니게 디린 코나 미치시에서 삼로 고고 마고와제 안 가르쳐서는 체디기 디기 삼로시도 아당한 저기 지게 개와 두개게 삼로 마고와제 되네 아다 지금하고 조보님도 안에 참참 조고 주고서 참참 딜링아 당아 조고서 되네 지게 안지 도시네 아니 지게 샤브로 차야래 아니 지 캠병 줘야래 되네게 세디점지 남면게 대화점라 차진 대려 고고르진 두고레스 제나디 고고르 두고르 제나 되네게 고고르지 되지는 안주게 계획자가 두고 말해서 만줄래 지단 예상으로 되네시래 사실 아주 두순거와
Reading the first two lines again. It is irrational to sit at ease thinking, today at least I shall not die. This, by now, because of these verses we've gone through, we should immediately recognize the validity, the truth of what Shantideva is saying here. We have experience of this. We don't think that this could be my last day, this could be my last session together, that this could be my last year of life. We don't think that we don't have that thought guiding how we prioritize. And because we live under this delusion that we have a great expanse of time ahead of us, decades and decades, by this delusion, our time and our energy is consumed. We hang out, we take it easy. When we do try and engage in virtue, our mind isn't focused, but rather our mind is relaxed, as if we have an immensity of time before us. And it's this misapprehension of the reality of our precarious situation that serves to deceive us and consume our time, consume our energy.
제마디와 직접와서 로 제마님는 지긴사 한 제마 지긴스 누신데 다디 지긴 다디 딩아 지려가도 차고도 들려가 제제 한 제마 지긴스 파 치대제 제마스자 누신에 한 샤고로 와당 되는 지고로와 되는게 한 지고로 와서 제가 되는 자다 디다 되는게 최제게 냠린 제가 삼모호지 체디 되게 삼나 차주도 되바다 근데 지금 최제와 삼바나 나다 맞아 제마제와선 레로 옹수선데 샤바디 디고르베 디고 말선 디고 말에서 대어도 리마인디 되네 지고 말디 디고 말에 되네 지고 말에서 거다
When one reflects on the certainty of death and the uncertainty as to when it will come, this does lead to the determination to practice the Dharma. But unless one has trained one's mind well, that determination to practice the Dharma will be weak and fleeting. And very easily, we will believe other excuses that arise in the mind. And we will say, I must practice the Dharma, but not from right now. Not from this moment onwards. I have this task to do which is very important. I have that project that I really need to see to its conclusion. Afterwards, definitely I will. And it's this way of deluding ourselves that our procrastination leads to our time and energy being lost. And this is irrational. This way of thinking is irrational.
다디 디고 말에서 마리비 김체 가래라네 다디 쇼라 다네 매버 규르디 데네 데메사와 중스 다네 매버 규주선 다데 아주 리틴 야고 안지게 고가 지게 최제 냠nen다 고갑 리디 여바디 아니 매버 규르고 그래서 이미지 매바 차로 그래서 데 매버 규르디 매바 차이 디스 용구레스 디 요아데 데미사와를 내봐 탈침바 내봐레 진짜 태좀 제거요 말에 제나디 매바 차이기 뒤세티 땡땡 용아레서 데미사와 중스 땡땡 용구레서 당 내봐도 먼저 님이 시주그레서 직식으로 와다 대사 먼저 리딘 다디디 님이 매바 차에 뒤수티 땡데 용구리 될이야 태좀 사와도 용구이 내면 태좀 사 도와 주네요 말 땡데 용구리 해서 되면서 중스.
And the reason why thinking like this is irrational is presented in the third and fourth line. For the time when I will be no more is undeniably approaching. And this is why believing that we have time, there's still decades ahead of us, we can practice at a later date. This is irrational because our lifespan is, in every moment, is decreasing. Moment by moment, when this life will end, is drawing nearer. And this is undeniable. There really is no doubt about this.
Then she was the Yungris, and the Gedi Yungre, Dangeva Yomares. Chisina, Sani Yungre, Chisin, Nan Yung, Chisin, Lojama, the Yungre. Do you think his Kayamas? Could you chile, and Jungres, Chesati, Gava Mevara. Chesatineza. 다양한 소속의 오당을 최지적으로 때 내려야 하는 지 조건님도 참여하지 기후를 다 공사다 디젤을 책임 납나 제사대 시에디 기딩시 내가 매반자 안디 최 맞아 para들이야 안디 지게 기후 다 두시 되면은 시에게 소면은 안에 고급지라고 말하는 냠내 제고 그러고 말했어 디나시 나는 저기 지게 두시는 고급지 기초야게 내가 열지다 시에디 텐데 용거래디 기딜에 내가 요 말에 되네 인자 최제베는 나든지 제고래 고주고래서 그러다 된다지 숨을.
The third and fourth line, for the time when I will be no more is undeniably approaching. So this serves to encourage us to recognize that we will die. And that when that will be, could be at any time. We cannot point to when our death will come. We have no logical reason to say that I have years ahead of me, or even months ahead of me, or weeks ahead of me. No one can say with certainty that even tomorrow they will arise in the morning. We need to not only recognize that the time will come from when we will be no more, and that can come at any moment. Therefore, we need to utilize well whatever it is that remains of this life. Because when we take our first breath in our next body, we have no idea what life form that will be in, nor what opportunities we'll have, whether they'll be remotely close to what we have right now. So therefore, that we need to generate a determination to utilize what remains of this life well and do so from right now.
Andusine Nazuya that Chike Samdang Roshi Dushin, Samdang Gure, Sajima, Mojichi, that is Samdang do that Dustin Junjuna, some of Jessica champion Anzulia, loved in now and Nashin, and do some time do that Kartamorasene, that so Sarang, she any getting a chicky and ever she touch over it. 자 마시베 타쳐봐서 네 그디시기를람나 네 내가스가요 말이었어 그디시기면 뒤수텐데요 다디 기부도서는 한 디긴 청주 체험의 시료야 내가 여러 와서 제가 되네기 시베 있나다 디바도지 마샤바지 시베는 디바사샤비기 제부디 둥아디에는 먹어봐는 용어 차그랬어 제가다 둥아디 먼저 개와치마라 둥아디 고고만 디기 고고를 개와치마라 디기 고고래 제가 둥아 고고가 말 둥아 영화에 규디 디바세래 제가 디바데 샤 고고래스 제가 마샤바제 시소바는 디디고 둥아디 용그래스 제가 디네자 디바딘지미지 마샤 고고도 세야데 제가 디네자 디링식 말씀 수랍투를 하고야 말게 교화도 제가 디링식 말씀 제가 디보 마샤바제 안지기 두아 아니가 그래 세디기 디기 담려 양제 고걸 되어있나 아니 지 디바 마샤바지 고마자 개와마루바지 시소바나 경험침보라사래 삼주 두치네 삼당 고래서 삼당 제바지 두치네 삼당 가르세니 신나 가르제스나 개와치마루 그래 한개와치마라 가린 것은 대화다 둥아요 아셔래 둥아데 가르세 디비디오 그래 지난 유디바데 마샤바는 디제보도 용거래 지난 유디바데 샤고고도 지난가 다데는 봐 남면진 마되바제 다데는 봐 디샤야기 개와 꼼제 니디바 샤고도 선비게 누신의 삼당 개와 꼼 샤고도 선비게 삼당고래서다
way we should receive every teaching, certainly this one too, is as being direct advice from the author of the text to ourselves. So what Shantideva is saying to each and every one of us is, death is certain. Your death is certain. And the time and manner of that is completely unknown. And this is how we should receive it. My death is certain. And the time and manner of my death is completely unknown. And it doesn't require a great event for our death to come. Even a small cause can lead to the great result of this life ending. Moreover, the rebirth that follows, we have no idea where that will be, or whether the opportunity that we have right now will be replicated again. We have no idea how easy it will be to reconnect with the path in our next life. So therefore, we must strive from now to abandon non-virtue and to accumulate virtue, because this is the method for happiness. This is the method to eliminate suffering. So what Shantideva is introducing to us here is a skillful way of thinking, which reminds us that we all want happiness and to be freed of suffering. And the way to achieve that, because it comes about independence on causes, the way to achieve that is to abandon unwholesome ways of thinking and to strengthen our habituation to wholesome ways of thinking. And this is what I must apply myself to now, strengthening my habituation to wholesome ways of thinking and weakening my habituation to unwholesome ways of thinking.
안데네 자다 님보 공부레스도 고미야데 당아주 고미야데 대시 슈바네 군노디 아주게 다 콜웨 동안들에 타고도 마탄데 타미누 선배 고동안에 타바더니지 군이라야다 안디에 맞에 다 되네게 딜레 톱체로 삼다토베나 야라나 셰 심전 탐지 고외 동안에 탈제 탈비 산교고 토고 심전 탐지를 펜바지 주고도 펜바주야라 예 안에지게 심전 탐지 고외 동안에 좋아지기 대자 예디 제발라 산교고 토고도 시베 대자 산교고 토발라 바체디 디바디레 제자 디베디 샤기 시베디 예디린 심전 탐지 산교고 토바셔 디 토비야 된다량의 디바디에 샤기 삼제 다 삼노 샤기 시베 다 디고 샤세디 나저기 이게 자선 참아지지 마셔죠. 디샤 제가 가요 말어. 디고 샤세디 수수 삼론을 개화고면 되래. 개화고면서는 디바도 뉴바메가 차르고라. 디고 샤세고라. 세상 개화 가르 공부라서는 권주숨나 접수디베 점로 고면이래. 아니 지금 야 샘자 탐지 대화도 되나 샘베게 잠바 고면 샘자 탐지 동화다 자와 쇼 샘베 니제 고면 다 심자 탐지기도 나 산요고바 토프쇼 세베게다 데네기 안지게 자주셈 kom야 아니 데네게 조나 소소랑에 최탐지 라신이 주베 동베게 동바점마도 랑원의 주바 요말 셈베 동바니 kom야 두스 kom야 되게 다 소소게 뉴벌 바비고 소소게 강투도 개와 두스네 kom야데 안디 맞에 아니 델레야 안지게 쇼가네 알라제 권조랴 지 최고포야 차세야 아니지게 아니지기 두스는 아주 몰람돼야 라서바 두스네 개와 군원데네 토네 개와 사바이나 개와 주바이나다 님보 띵거다 디비 님보 세티 띵거 데네게 고모도 소수게 삼로데 개베 삼로데까지 슈체데 취체체 조여도 소수게 삼로나라야 님마 디버사시비 디비 바자데게 바 뉴버 춘슈 주고데 디샤사데 돈수 샤타로 디체고레서
As I mentioned earlier, our motivation before all activities is imperative, because if our motivation is virtuous, whatever we engage in will be virtuous. So here the motivation to generate, and to generate really in all cases, is the determination to gain liberation or freedom from suffering. And the strength of one's motivation should be such that we recognize and act in accordance with the determination that nothing else is as important as my gaining liberation from suffering. And then conjoined with this, the very purpose of my striving for liberation from suffering is so that I can become ever more skilled in helping others also gain liberation from suffering. So therefore, every effort I make, for example, turning away from unwholesome ways of thinking, or turning away from being obsessed with worldly activities, to give us strength to change these habits, we recognize that we are doing this not just for ourselves, but others are relying on us. And here, because we are in the context of confession, we also recognize that what is preventing us from gaining liberation, what is preventing our spiritual development towards attaining liberation, is our non-virtue. So too, what is preventing us from being able to skillfully help others is our own non-virtue. So therefore, we need to engage in confession. And the key point to understand with the process of confession is it's not merely recognizing faults that one has done, but it is the determination to no longer engage in such faulty ways of thinking that lead to faulty physical and verbal behavior. And to bring that about, it's not just the mere restraint of not engaging in unwholesome behavior, but it is strengthening our habituation to the contrary way of thinking and therefore acting. Because as we become ever more, our mind becomes ever more wholesome or virtuous, it will naturally be ever less unwholesome or non-virtuous. So therefore, having recognized our unwholesome tendencies, we strive to strengthen our wholesome tendencies. And these includes, amongst the wide variety, specifically, firstly, the mind of refuge, where with sincerity we recognize the quality of the three jewels and we set out the determination to cultivate those same qualities within. And to actualize that, we also meditate on bodhicitta, cultivating a sincere, tender attitude towards all. And also, thirdly, in addition to refuge and bodhicitta, thirdly is the reflection on reality, recognizing that how phenomena appear to our mind is not how they exist in reality. So wholesome minds such as these, refuge, bodhicitta, and emptiness, these are the actual antidotes to non-virtue. It's cultivating virtuous ways of thinking that purifies or eliminates non-virtuous ways of thinking.
Bendigo Geshe Thubten Samda that is Shivana, Samda, Tambola, other Kitishi, Neva, Soma, that is also deeper, Dibu, Dunga, Yongore, she's not divided Meva, so who do, she's not the name that, Yawa, Nitiva Meva, so Diva Shah, who do that Diva Shag, Tondala Yang, Gavat, Kongo, Makum, Taminus, she's not that machine that, so Sogi. Gomiagi Tusuba, Subu Chanena, Gomiagi, Tunjenda, Chasa, Sandeva Chire, Gohoyabudu, Tina, Mahobana, Dukohop Denegi Ramara, Subut Chige, Tamumeba Chaya, Lasopata, Denegi, Gangachana, Gangach come to Yama, that the doctor you do Kablia, then Yamnichi, Sebi Samlasta, Jehovah Dushin, some done, Dangas Dushin, Shovania, Lanche, some died, that and that did it, some died. That me semi. Semja Tam Jigidona Sanyokoba Toba Chigi, Ditobala, and the Dipatia de Parche, just and Dipa de Shaggy, Samje, that didn't a Dipa de Shaggy, Sambika, some Daja, Kunas Dipa Shaje, Semja Tamju, Sanyokoba Toba Chigi, Didandalea, Dipa de Shaggy, Sambikuno, Disamnachita, Disamdies Jelia, Anjugita, Chicken. Dipa Shaggy Dondalia, Sanyo Jumden de la Jeju, Devachi, Sanyo Jumden de Kunyan de Sosu, Dundomosu, Sembe de la Jeju, Minio Com Jabaina, some Namia Shandomata, the Sangela Michel, Jeju Com Jabaina, and the young goes the Dingans of Gongorwa, and Nikawachago, Dipa Shaga Chagore. And Dina she that the Nigi Dipa. Semja Tamjo Sanyo Kovan Tovachi, Didondalia, Dipa Shagin, some Dipa Shagin, some Kuno di kebi toneda, ya san yele yang mandaji puba in the dushin and mandu puba in the dushin puba in the Gavasa di, and then Nyembo Tigore, Gavasa Gorwa. On dushin Gawa, dushin sometime gore, Dina she dang as the Semja Tamje, Dona Semja Tamje Dio, the temper show, Sembe share some Lakaya Matavaji, Namia Chasangaji, Semja Dio, the temper show, Sembe, some Locorona, Michi, Teju, Nature, long on the Gushi, do station Nebo Combaina, and they Jamba Comba. They are Nangansugi, Nimbo, Tingo, Gawa Combo, just a duchin answer, Combiadi, Comboedi, that it is more. It is a dineza, Lelo Majava, Junju Danger, and Combo, Sati, don't I knew what is more. Nimbo, Kuntuship, Tops, Nimbo Dinanoch, Dinik.
The meaning of what Shantideva is sharing with us or communicating with us in this verse is that we have to take charge, take control, take ownership of our own mind. Our own mind is our own responsibility, and the faults on our mind, these faulty habitual tendencies that cause pain to ourselves and others, these we have to purify. And we purify through this general process of confession. And I need to do so right now, because I haven't got an expanse of time before me. I need to alter these habitual tendencies from right now, and not only right now, but from right now, continuously forward. Because right now I have an excellent opportunity. I've met the Dharma. I have the intellectual capacity to understand these teachings, and I have the opportunity to apply them to my mind. I have this right now. I do not know how long this opportunity will last. So right now, I must utilize this opportunity well and continue to do so. Then in terms of the actual meditation, we generate the motivation, as mentioned a moment ago, that I have to become a Buddha as quickly as possible so that I can benefit others. And I need to progress towards attainment of enlightenment as quickly as possible, because as I spiritually develop, I will be of ever more benefit to others. So to bring this about, I confess past misdeeds. And here we recall faults that we know we have done, or we know in lives previous to this we would have done. And we generate regret for those, knowing that the suffering that awaits us because of those misdeeds, we confess those. And we confess them as if Buddha Shakyamuni appeared before us. We confess directly to Buddha Shakyamuni before us, admitting, I've done this, I remember doing this, I know in lives past I would have done that, and we confess as if Buddha Shakyamuni were before us. And the purpose of this is to ensure that our confession of past misdeeds is sincere, as if we were saying it to someone. And with his omniscient consciousness, the Buddha is there before us. So in this way, the opponent power of regret is much more powerful. And so too, the next opponent power of the restraint or the promise, where one makes a commitment to not repeating such harmful behavior. And with this step and the previous and subsequent steps, you're engaging in analytical meditation because you're engaging in a thought process. But when you generate, for example, faith in the Buddha, then abide with that, rest with that. And this is placement meditation. The purpose is to strengthen your habituation to that wholesome mind. So you rest with this mind of faith, or this emotion of faith. And in this way, you strengthen your habituation to it. When your mind gets distracted, you continue with analytical meditation. And this is crucial advice to apply in all your meditation, to alternate in this way between placement and analytical meditation. So thereafter, one can engage in a specific virtuous practice to serve as an antidote. And here, you can engage in anything that you have a predisposition towards, such as some take great pleasure in offering a mandala. So taking pleasure in it, you will offer it with more sincerity and thereby create ever more virtue. Others prefer analytical meditation, may choose, for example, to meditate on love, generating first a close and tender attitude towards all beings, then generating the determination, may they abide in happiness, and then generating the thought, and to do so, may they cultivate the causes to do so, and I will guide them to do so. In this way, one generates love, and this virtue serves to purify past misdeeds.
다디네 지진이바들라 달라 미시 수이진 딜레지 다른게 다르시 되면 사버 메규르나 지다르 다기 다이 되어 두크사.
And then the 59th verse. Who can grant me fearlessness? How can I actually escape this? If my death is inevitable, how can I sit here with my mind careless and at ease?
달라 미시 수이진 세드 당한 주긴 디파사바네 디베티보디 안에 겨와 치말이야 안 동아요아 들어와 동아 아니 시나다 동아 강아체 책으로와 제사대 강아체디 가르치고 디메바서야라 가르치고르스네 소소라랑기 아니 산지기 마 탑람 냠렌지에게 라마 산지 마송 라마게 마가즈를 모두시시베 냠렌지 림바디 나주기 냠렌지제네 디바데 샤고레서 개와 주고레세 제사 데네 개와 주바이나 아니 개와 치마 디바 샤바자 디비티고 동아디 녀용 용고 말레스 난 데네게 소소기 디바데 마샤바이나 아니 개와 치마 소소기 냠렌지제 디바데 마샤바이나 디비 두부 동아 용 모양하기 미직바디 강한 마체기디 라마다 산지 수강에 대하여 말했어. 되게 말했어. 되는 수직이 돼서 대하여 말했어. 달라 미시 수이신세도 제가 디비 대부 동아디 모양에도 소소기 냠렌지 곰제 소소라는 게 삼다 곰제 디바디 파샤네 디비 대부 모험반의 디비 대부디 디기 동아디 그 디기도 줍투그레스 마도 소소기 마제바체 라마다 산제 디기 아니 전신 발라소비기 마 아니 강한 세제 아니 미식바스 루심기 디기 강한 메딩 디기디 제 수강에 제요 말해서 달라 미식 수시스 달라 미직바 셴나메바 강한 메바디 수제기리 제요 말해서
The first line, who can grant me fearlessness? So the non-virtue that abides on our continuum, as this ripens, we suffer. If it ripens in this life, we suffer now. And of what isn't exhausted in this life will ripen in lives to come and be the cause of all our suffering and misery. So what can be done about this? The truth is, no one, not even the Buddha or our Lama, can protect us from the non-virtue that abides on our own continuum. This non-virtue that we've accumulated and abides on our continuum, not even the Buddha or our Lamas can protect us from this. But by our teachers guiding us in how to cultivate the paths of the Buddha Dharma as taught by Buddha Shakyamuni himself, by our Lama guiding us in this way, and us applying those teachings to our own mind, cultivating them within ourselves. This is how we gain freedom. This is the only method. This is how we, independence, through relying on our teachers, can gain protection from our own non-virtue. This is the only way. There's this interdependence, whereby through relying on the guidance of our teachers, and by us cultivating that guidance within our own mind, we can eradicate non-virtue and gain protection from suffering. This and this alone is the method by which we can gain fearlessness, we can gain protection from suffering.
네 샹다기 개월줍제 소소랭아즈레 디기야 메르와 디나시 소소기 디퍼사샤바데 소소라랑게 샤제 메바스 안 메바스네 디기디 아니 용고레 디퍼샤네 메바소바나 아니 개호두보로와 개호두비 제부들 미식바 강하면바 디기디 아니 용으로와 제가 미식바 제가 디네자 다 산지기 랑기 맞제바제 셴 라마다 산지기 소수기 사셰비 디파디 마샤야요 말레스 샤메반자 디비기 디보 딜레 도초 디기 루심 디기디 아니 미식바 강하면 디기디 아니 산제다 자주 셈비기다 라메수가 저 나야요 말레스 제가 요하요 말레스 디슈 살아와
There's an important point being made here is that our future is in our own hands. How much we suffer or how much happiness we experience is dependent on our own endeavors. That being said, though, we are also reliant on others, in particular, on both receiving the guidance from our spiritual teachers, but also applying that guidance, cultivating it within. Merely hearing teachings is insufficient. We need to then cultivate them within. But the key point to take here is that Buddhas cannot give us happiness, nor can our lama, nor can the Bodhisattvas, nor can they protect us from our own non-virtue. This is in our hands. And through relying on their advice, through cultivating their advice within, we will abide in a state of lasting happiness, free of suffering.
Tene sanye da lama da janju simba la sobe ngara zo diba di meba soye ke je changa zo kanga mebe ki teki di hen yo marwas. Da shanda e te che ne so sui dunga de meba soye teki di so so ki shangi tone te ya meba re. So so ki ne mache ba re. Mache ba ne da koyo dunga de le taraya ke yo marwas. Taraya kanis taraya taraya yo marwas. Di le chi tar nge tar she kanis taraya yo marwas.
The second line, how can I actually escape this? So we cannot escape from our own non-virtue unless we apply the teachings that we receive. We cannot escape our non-virtue unless we purify it. The Buddha, our Lama, the Bodhisattvas and so forth, they cannot do the work for us. And if we do not transform our own mind, we will continue to suffer in life after life. We will continue to cycle in samsara. Birth after suffering, rebirth will follow. Because the sufferings of samsara are inexhaustible. They do not just run out. We have to transform our own mind. That is the only way to bring an end to our own suffering.
Dine zada nga zuki dunga se dan digi juya di rana soso rana di dunga di pa se digi di chuko hore. Yana soso ma jeba ni mi shanda chigi soso ge kanga di se che digi di chuko jaya chiko hore. Dini ima to kanga se di yoma hore. Soso nga zu jidani shebe ne, nga zu jisa shebe ne, soso kanga shebe ne. Yana soso rana ki shala di moga di soso rana ki je che kanga di se ya chik che. 소소 라는 게 맞아버는 미션다 지가 강한 세트야 돼. 디니 토네마도 세트야 매르와. 매완자 마주기 디버사 셰비 디비 제부 동어 용거야디 야나 소소 라는 게 냠는 제제 파 매바 쇠제 디바디 파샤 동아도 용모 소소 라는 쇠고 그랬어. 디 소소 라는 맞아봐이나 야나 라마다 상예기 아주 디바디 샤제 동아 매바 쇠 디기 줘야 돼. 진짜 그랬어. 니마도 요 말했어. 니마도 메디 상계다 저주 선발로 소백이네. 아주 디바데 샤제 아니 가소리 디기디 제요 말했어. 제요 말했어. 건주기 디바 샤에게 탑람당 디기주비에 탑람 람된 있는 길에 마도 디 나즈게 람된 나가지 나즈 냠내 제데 람된 있는 길에 마도 람된 매바 거 나즈 디기디바 제다 동할 세야디 상계다 저주 선발이 매바레스 매바인자 다 가르쳐오랬으네 소소라 건축에 람든 나셔봐 디기 제수 장시 람든 나마나지 소소랑게 냠내지 공고야디 차고레스 디자와이나 안 코르 동하다 강안세 투그레스 디 맞아봐이나 강안세 투고 말아 간세 투그레 세게 탑랑 코로지요 말아 와시고다
Just like in your own life, every unwanted situation you encounter, there are only two solutions to it. Either someone else will sort out your problems for you, or you'll sort out their own problem. And sometimes others, they can help out and solve the situation. Other times you have to do it yourself. Those are the two options. There's not another way. You either do it or someone else does it. And so to eradicate all the non-virtue in our continuum and bring about the attainment of lasting happiness, either we do it ourselves or someone else does it for us. But the reality of the situation is, with all the power of the Buddhas and the incredible compassion of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they cannot eradicate our suffering. They cannot bestow their good qualities on us. The only way they can help is by showing us, by guiding us. But that alone is insufficient. We cannot just receive the training. We have to cultivate that training. We have to put that training into practice. This is the only way. We need to cultivate our habituation to wholesome ways of thinking, these wholesome ways of thinking that we receive guidance from in all teachings. These we need to gain habituation to, so they become part of our very nature, part of our very natural way of thinking, our personality. This and this alone is how we gain freedom from suffering and attain a state of lasting happiness.
아니베들라 되미사와 메교나 지다르다게 되어 독세 대신하지 지바르다 되미사와 네바도 되미사와 최선 메바 님이 지금 아주 시루고 메바 자루 그랬어. 지 메바 교회나 가네스타 나 세델리아 지 계셔 마두바지 곰마제바 냠네 마제바지 아니 지 세티섬이 디길이야 차제 도시네 레로체 돼야지 가네스 지금 말해서 지들 다이 되어 독세.
And the verse concludes with two lines. If my death is inevitable, how can I sit here with my mind careless and at ease? So these two lines are similar to what was presented, the meaning is similar to what was presented in the previous verse. So the third line here, if my death is inevitable, in other words, death will come. So recognizing this, then the fourth line, how can I sit here with my mind careless and at ease? In other words, just passing the time in ordinary mundane activities and thinking about things that really have no great importance. As I am going to die, as this opportunity to radically transform the future projection of my lives, as this opportunity is ending, how can I sit here careless and carefree?
아직이 내가 저게 지지지게 삼노도 하나 가르려고 그랬으니 이제 시월에 준비하는 삼노도 제바지는 제월에서 하다 제바지다로 그랬으니 다가 이제 디버사시비 디비디고도 동아시면 고고래 지사디 동아여야디 디버디 마 매바 상계다 라마다 상계 자신sem발라 소비 매바 수혜시 지구 뒤에서는 디 매바 수제스미도아스 안디기디 안투스나 여러베선 디 나요 마 소소 마제바디 나 매바래 나 여바이나 상계다 자신sem발라 semjen함제 제와 여바자 semjen함제 디기견야 주도 강한 매바 차사 난그와스 디 민도아 나야 매바레스 나야 매나 아는 코로나 중에 디 냠렌지 매바 소에게 탑람된 안저 남된 지고래 다디 탑람들 남된 지하바도 소소라랑게 마치네다 탑 민도 소소라랑 중에 하나랑게 소소라랑게 제제 아니 또 대기 가서 디버사체 디버기니 뭐곰 대신 니 뭐곰 나디 겸로다 잠니제다 동반이다 정유도 자주sem라서 두체 디곰제 매바 소고도 선배데 탑 디마도 다 매바 소에기 동아이 매바 소에게 탑람 디마도 민도다 전에 타쳐바제 타쳐나 다딩이 먹음네 탑매 아 선배기 다 디르야 디야 곰이야 디야 제마 로제마 마샤바제 다들하는 공구이 가르스네 로제마스니 되면서와 매바규 지다다기 되어 주선 되네게 차 되면 기지신 해봐 요 말와 믿어 봐라 기지신 해봐 요 말. 제가 되네게서 다들 유화 마저 빠르도 소속이 곰 냠내 제 대탕 예비 갑ling 곰기 산베게다 두신의 삼다제 다 저게 대시 슈가 나신지네 행아 쇼에는 주고야라 되네 제게 만데 군로 셈제 담시 산주고 봐도 쇼 셈비 군에 라제 내가 지금 만데 표가 있나다 직나로 된바이나다 되네 이제 야 제시도 잠바 곰이야 인제 곰이야 라서 가라 곰 두스케와 좀나 디고 디체고래 송고라.
The summary, to summarize the meaning of what Shantideva is presenting in these verses, is that others, no one else, not even the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, can eliminate our suffering. And nor can they bestow their good qualities upon us. This is not possible. That being said, though, our situation is not at all hopeless. We are actually incredibly fortunate. Recognizing this, we generate the determination to cultivate wholesome minds such as refuge, bodhicitta, and the wisdom realizing emptiness within. And strengthen that determination with the understanding that I will do so from right now, because my death is inevitable. Or to express that differently, this incredible opportunity that I have, this is ending. So therefore there is no time to waste. There's no time to waste on things that are trivial, things that have no real meaning. So therefore make the commitment that from right now until I go to sleep, and from when I rise in the morning and throughout every day until I go to sleep, at all times I will take care of my mind. Whatever I'm engaging in, I'll be mindful of my mental process. When I see my mind is going towards the afflictions, to pull it back towards virtue. And in this way, at all times, whatever I'm doing, I will ensure my mind is virtuous. In this way, I will live a life of great meaning. No matter what I'm engaging in, my mind will be virtuous.
And in it, Gyawasa said, Samlonalia, that the Niki, Chike, Semja Tamje, Tiki, the Tempershow, Sempik, Samlotava, this Samlo de Gawareda, the Gaware, and Dipinian Boare, the Nyambo said, Gongor, that you combine Dipinian Bocha or Dipashu Chon to war. Chisnada, Semja Tamje, Tiki, the Tempershow, Sembe Samlodi, and the Shugan Yana, Yane, Yado Kazema, Tantune, Gawama Sagore. Dina Semjan Tamjela, Duma the Mara shows, Semlin Kulia, Semjan. Midang, and the Dundu Sulina, Ganga the Meva show, Sembe Ganga the Machever show, Sembe, Dunga the Tower show, Sembe, some this some of the Hane, Yado Kidim, Kazema, this some of the Gavare, some of the Gavare. Tis this Gavare. Shelia never somebody and save some never chicken Sembe, some of Kuna Kevana, did Tigare, Dagaji, and the Gavada Divase Dideva. Tis not done as the Gawa troops said, some of the Titangores or Shella, Tiki Chunga show, Sembe, some of the Tayada. Shen Simjan de Dunga Mayon show, Sembe Samnataya. Nay Simjan the Shanley, Pember to Tour show, Sembe Samtana, teachers and Kawachagore. Tis a disso Samnotiki Chango, yes, Yana, Samtana, Sarachik, Dani, Danene, Gedina Yasi, as cordial, and then Chick Lucina, Gedina, Yang cordial, Jigungor, what I did Goya, Gomshil Masaya, shoot church, the Kawatuya, the Kawasa said. Gavasa said, Salana Chala Chike Pasha Chini, Nisha the Sa Sigro, and Dina Shinha Dini gave you some Sarchik, Ni, some. The name of Mamma that Gavasa Sigoro. Then Gavasa said this order. Today, Dibi Nyembo comes in a Nyembo Nadare, Nyembo Kongore, says that the Diva Chundu or Divum, says that the Gavasa said this order.
The antidote to unwholesome or non-virtuous ways of thinking are virtuous or wholesome ways of thinking. So a thought process I encourage you to engage in is to generate the wish, may all beings abide in happiness. Every single being, human and non-human, all want to abide in happiness, a state that is freed from all forms of suffering and pain. and generate this thought. May all beings, myself and all others, human and non-human, may they cultivate the causes that will lead to happiness. May they refrain from the causes that will lead to suffering. And think about these 2 points from many different aspects, generating this again and again within your mind, so that this emotion arises, this strong yearning, may beings abide in happiness. And then, throughout your day, keep turning your mind back to this, as if it were a mantra that one was reciting again and again. Because many activities one engages in doesn't require a thought process, so one can turn your mind to, may all beings abide in happiness, freed of suffering. And accompany that with the determination that everything that I say, everything that I do, and everything that I think, may it not bring harm to others. And moreover, wherever I can, may I help others. May I ease their suffering. May I bring them happiness. And generate these thoughts again and again. From this moment forth, may everything I say, everything I do, and everything I think be of greatest meaning to others. So by thinking like this in meditation, but then importantly, reminding yourself of this again and again throughout the day, this is how you develop new habits. You create a new habitual way of thinking. And this is how virtue is accumulated. And this word of accumulation can also be expressed as collection or gathering. So just like one gathers many things together, perhaps gathers all the tables and chairs together, in the same way one takes one's virtuous minds and gathers them in an ever greater heap. This is what we're trying to do. Strengthen this heap of this accumulation of virtuous ways of thinking, because the greater this accumulation becomes, the opposing accumulation, that of habitual tendencies to think in non-virtuous ways, they proportionately weaken, becoming less frequent and weaker.
Zunju zum sedi da deni ge nyamlen che la ga yu ga lang la sam lo dile zunju si ro wa ga lang la sa jina da ga lang la je ne nga ju ge ji di gi ya chu bu ya la so ba da ge wa ko me la sa ga lang la deni ge ji je be ya hu re sem be ga wa ko mi to ne ani ga lang la je ne nyamlen che de le ya zunju zum ba si ro de ya ne mu du ji yun me ji cha ji je ani ya sha ba men ba je mu du yun ju je an de ju je wo le sa ado zunju se di deni ge yu jawa je ya ga lang lang je je an ju je ji da de ya mu tu yu je an ji ge ko je de la ya an mu di se de da ni me ji ni je je de ja sha ba man ba je di ren de je san yi de wa na yi de wa do ni me re do ji mu di je de le zunju zum ba se ma do ya zunju zum se de be ji da ma ma je de ta mu de be sem ya be nuen shu ro shu je je ji da di ma je de de me no se me nuen shu shu je je ba je be ne sem ya gang a shu le ji da de s ma de na ya ko ro na ya da an mi ge shi she da nga di je le ba je shu de什么 zhuo lang ya la so ba da de ne ge an gang zhen ji la gang a che de be ko ran sha sha ge nyang a chen bo de ne za de be zun ju xie de ge yue jiao che le ga lang lang je 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 ba de la zun ju zong ba so zun ju zong se da de ya mu di yu je an ji ge ni me ji le na shuo ge er je an ji du su ye de go hop ye du su chen je ge ji ma de be cha ji chen de sha sha men ba ji du zong bo le si wo de wo de je tab ke be to ne nyam le je or ma de lam sa a di le da zang a zun ju zong gu sen be wu zu shu lo che jab sem shu le sem ne shu shu ji zhe de an sem le gang a an ji yang ji da da zhuo ma de de ne so long pa ya an mi di wa de s ma de na ji long su su ge de jin de ge wa zhu ye le da long shu la ko la de ne di ba nyam de sa yong gu ro je na di ne ya ko cha tu go ma de ne za a zun zhe xie de ya ji zum na de go ma no ra je de ge qi mo shu xia guo re.
To radically transform one's mind requires great effort, because we have habituations, in particular as addressed here tonight, towards laziness. And laziness takes many forms, one of which is procrastination. Another is the laziness of engaging in a variety of activities. So to overcome laziness, one relies on the contrary mind, the opposing mind, the antidote of joyous perseverance. So here I want to talk a little in conclusion about the meaning of joyous perseverance, because all too easily it can be misunderstood and can result in one not endeavoring well, not being skillful. Joyous perseverance is actually a skillful means to rapidly transform one's mind. So this term joyous perseverance only relates to virtue. So anything that a virtuous activity that one is engaging in. So that's the first point. It relates to something virtuous. The second point relates to the word joyous. So joyous then shows that the mind is light. It's taking pleasure. It's delighting in what's being done. Because all too often in society, where one is applying great effort, the mind isn't joyous. One is trying to break through barriers or go through a wall of resistance. That is not joyous. So when you hear the word, it's also another word translated as effort. You should understand effort or joyous perseverance to be a mind that is light, that is taking pleasure in engaging in virtue. The second term, that of perseverance. Perseverance implies continuity, or rather being continuous, so not sporadic. So one engages in virtue continuously, not just now and again, not just sporadically. So these are the two characteristics of this term effort or joyous perseverance. The mind is light because it's joyful. Secondly, one is engaging in virtue continuously, and this is the meaning of perseverance. And to help one's mind not become tight and narrow, as we normally understand the word effort, one should have an expansive outlook, seeing that one needs to engage continuously to achieve a long-term goal. And if you have this broad understanding of it being a long-term goal one is striving to, this will help lessen the grasping that will follow from wanting to achieve right now. So one wants to achieve a goal, but one doesn't grasp at that. One strives continuously to achieve that goal, but with a mind that is joyous and it is light. So with this understanding then, one can engage with effort, but in a skillful manner. And this enables one to be both joyous and to persevere over a long period of time.
Ngambio cho de komshi ra nyama lo mangbo yin komshi shu chemo yo ba za ta sangbio cho de pa nyamlen che ya gili chen ma to lamsa an ko je be je chemo chine dang tu ya yi ga la bo ren za din din za da kong a zu ge la ga le wa gi di na da chue kyang ya ji ge se le ga ma la de be ne ha zu ya tun jin ye gang a che go ro ba je le ga ko le go ro ba je le wa za da ha zu ge e mu di je ne jo ge du su ye de ha zu ge wa kunlo cha sem yu kun ya la che ta de shi shu ba na che jam ba ko me ni che ko me cha ju sem ko me la so ba de ne jam ro ko me du sin no mi chi che de ko me la so ba ge wa sam da de ye che ji le ga le be ka bli ne da so chi so ge so ge le ga na da chi bi ge le ga chi le be na da sem je shan le pen be chi du yin a sem be shan le pan do yin a chi de shen di yu a da shen ye gang a se chi du nge di chi ge sem be ge kunwa dine samda lebe na, di kunwa di gyawa chaadhruwa. Chizangi gyawa di muti chi le di kasa chagwari. Dine ki chi aydi nga zu kye chi mo chagwariwa. Dine za, ta dine ki du chinda, dine yase, dine jema na du komshi cher rodu, nga zu an chi du se yakbu yodu, giti na dine chi ke shu chuya di shu cher rodu borwa. Chizangi dangbo na du chinda chagwa di kye chi mo chagwariwa. Mangan che di kingo wari da nga zu ki du chinda, chi ke.
this term practice, or to express it literally, means to gain experience. This is in relation to one's mind. The Dharma practice means changing one's mind, cultivating one's mind. And this is also important to know, that the emphasis is on our mental process. Also, we must be very clear that this process of changing our mind is not going to happen quickly. It's certainly not going to happen overnight. Because what we are trying to do is change our mental habits that have not just been cultivated in this last week, month, or even in this lifetime. We are trying to change habit patterns that are being strengthened over lifetimes. So therefore it's unrealistic to expect immediate change. But change can and will come. To bring it about requires continuous, gentle effort. Change then will come. So in terms of one's daily life, one needs to work and earn a living, one needs to look after one's health, look after one's home, and so forth. So these are things that everyone needs to do. But how you do it is very important. So to take the Dharma that you learn here into your daily life means these various activities that have to be done, you look at and decide or determine what really has to be done and what is superfluous. What's superfluous, you let go of. What has to be done, you do. But you do with the minds of the Dharma. Because Dharma practice means transforming your mind. Everything you do, your job, caring for your family, your home, your health, is all done with your mind. So therefore, ensure that whatever you're engaging in, you're doing with the minds of the Dharma. If you're cultivating the wish, for example, may all beings be happy, may they be free of suffering. You remind yourself of that at your place of work, while looking after your home and your health. And thereby, when you interact with others, you will be doing so, influenced by that way of thinking. And this then is how you take your Dharma practice, and it becomes relevant in your daily life. Even with the most mundane and ordinary and unimportant of activities, when done with such an attitude, you create virtue, and you bring benefit to others too. And then, when you have a little bit of time, and do look for it, make time for yourself, then you sit and you concentrate and you do the meditations. But the rest of the time, don't lose yourself to distraction. Those minds you cultivate here in the classes and at home in meditation, have them present whilst going through your daily activities. And in this way, you take this life, and you live it in a meaningful way. So thank you. Then we'll conclude there for tonight. Thank you.